They said what? The cyborg chieftain's voice crackled with incredulity as it reverberated through the command center. The alien cyborgs, a blend of organic and synthetic beings, had spent eons honing their combat skills. Their efficiency was so cold it could freeze a supernova. They had subjugated entire worlds, bent species to their will, and conquered planets with the grace of a bulldozer in a china shop. Yet here they were, faced with a message from a race they had barely bothered to classify as a threat: humans. The message was disarmingly simple. "Don't harm our alien buddies," it read. No begging, no pleas, just a stark warning. The cyborg leader, a towering mass of metal and flesh that sneered with all the subtlety of a malfunctioning fax machine, was less than impressed. His processors churned through probabilities and battle simulations with all the warmth of a calculator in a freezer. Not one scenario had the humans coming out on top. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and outclassed technologically. To the cyborgs, the warning was almost comedic. "Prepare the fleet," the leader commanded, his voice as chilly as a penguin's vacation. "Let's show these humans what happens when you mess with the Borgus." As the cyborg armada, a shimmering spectacle of dark metal and swirling energy, descended upon the planet the humans were defending, it was clear they were aiming to make an example of it. The planet wasn't strategically important, but it was home to a handful of alien refugees. The cyborgs intended to send a message that no one, not even these so-called friends of the humans, would escape their wrath. But as the fleet neared, sensors began detecting something odd. A lone human ship appeared at the edge of the fleet's sensors. It was a relic from humanity's early spacefaring days, a clunky, outdated destroyer that looked like it had been assembled in someone's garage. It seemed to be unarmed. "Is this some kind of cosmic joke?" one of the cyborg officers asked, squinting at the human vessel through his synthetic eyeballs. The leader didn't respond. His focus was on the ship's trajectory. The destroyer was on a collision course with the command ship, and it wasn't even trying to dodge or slow down. The leader ordered a scan, but nothing unusual showed up. No energy spikes, no hidden weapons, just a glorified space junker on a kamikaze mission. "Destroy it," he ordered, his command ship's weapons locking onto the destroyer. Energy beams shot out with pinpoint precision. But before they could hit, the human ship seemed to momentarily glitch, like a bad movie effect. And then it was gone. "Where did it go?" the leader demanded. His question was answered almost immediately. The destroyer reappeared within the cyborg fleet, moving at speeds that defied explanation. It wove between the larger ships like a caffeinated squirrel, striking them with such force that they exploded one by one. "This is impossible," shouted the cyborg officer, his circuits overheating as he tried to make sense of the chaos. The leader's synthetic mind struggled to grasp what his organic side found utterly bewildering. This wasn't normal human technology. The ship was moving faster than their sensors could track, and its hull was invulnerable to their weapons. It was as if the humans had tapped into some kind of cosmic cheat code. "Fall back," the leader ordered, but it was too late. The human ship was already barreling toward the command ship like a flaming wrecking ball. The cyborgs' desperate attempts to stop it were futile. With a deafening crash, the destroyer collided with the command ship's core, detonating in a blinding flash. The cyborg leader's final thought before his consciousness was extinguished was one of bitter realization. The humans had warned them, and in their arrogance, the cyborgs had learned the hard way what that warning meant. As the debris of the cyborg fleet drifted through the void, the humans emerged victorious. Their single ship had turned the tide of battle, a lone wolf among sheep. It was a lesson to anyone who thought underestimating humanity was a good idea. The wreckage of the cyborg fleet now orbited the refugee planet like a grim display of twisted metal and broken circuits. Among the debris, the solitary human destroyer drifted, its once sleek hull battered but unbroken. The battle had been won for the history books, but on the planet's surface, the alien refugees watched with awe. They had seen the humans come out of nowhere, offering protection with no strings attached. Now, a shuttle descended from the human destroyer, cutting through the atmosphere and drawing the promise of more to come. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, its hull glowing from the friction of re-entry, The alien refugees watched in a mix of awe and disbelief. The shuttle was sleek, though it sported a few battle scars, a testament to the recent clash. On the ground, in makeshift shelters hastily constructed from alien materials, a diverse assembly of species huddled together. They were a patchwork of the galaxy's lost and displaced, all seeking refuge from the relentless advance of the Borgus. Tira, a former diplomat from the planet Veridonia, wiped the sweat off her brow. "So, are we about to be rescued, or is this just a really elaborate prank?" she asked her companion, Zog, a grumpy, six-armed Bractonian with a penchant for sarcasm. Zog, who had been fiddling with a makeshift antenna, grunted. "If this is a prank, it's the most elaborate one I've ever seen. I'd say it's more likely we're about to meet our new overlords." The refugees watched as the shuttle touched down gently on the planet's surface. Its door hissed open, and out stepped a figure who looked like they'd just walked off a galactic fashion runway. Commander Riley, the human in charge of the operation. Riley was clad in a uniform that looked like it had been designed by someone who had recently binge-watched every sci-fi movie in existence. Riley adjusted his shiny, mirrored sunglasses and took a deep breath, savoring the planet's unusual mix of aromas. "Ah, the sweet smell of victory and, is that recycled sewage?" he mused aloud. A small crowd of refugees approached hesitantly. Tira stepped forward, trying to muster what little dignity she had left. "Greetings, Commander. I am Tira of Veridonia. We are grateful for your assistance. But we need to know, are you here to help us or to conquer what remains?" Riley gave her a charming grin. "Well, I'd love to say we're here to conquer, but we're actually just here to help. The universe is a big place, and not all of it is under the iron grip of the Borgus. Sometimes people like us just have to step in and do the right thing." Zog raised an eyebrow. "And what's in it for you? We're not exactly rolling in resources." "Hey, you think we're here just for your planet's ambience?" Riley chuckled. "No, we're here because—" Suddenly, a loud, metallic clang interrupted him. Out of the shuttle's cargo hold emerged a small robot with a cheerful, blinking face. It rolled up to Riley and chirped, "Commander, I've completed the recon of the perimeter. No sign of immediate threat, but I've found some excellent coffee beans. They might be sentient, though." Riley sighed and shook his head. "That's our 5D2, my personal robot sidekick. Always on the lookout for good coffee." He turned back to the refugees. "To answer your question, we're here because we believe in something more. We're starting a coalition, a sort of intergalactic buddy system. We want to make sure that when the Borgus or anyone else comes knocking, we'll be ready to defend each other." Tira's eyes widened. "A coalition? You mean like an alliance?" "Exactly," Riley said, striking a dramatic pose. "Think of it as a cosmic neighborhood watch program, except with fewer nosy neighbors and more high-tech weaponry." The refugees exchanged glances. The idea was both thrilling and a little daunting. They had endured so much. The notion of a new alliance was a glimmer of hope. "All right," Tira said, a tentative smile forming. "If you're serious about this, we'll need to get to work. We've got to fortify our defenses and plan for future attacks." Riley's grin widened. "That's the spirit. And don't worry, we got plenty of engineers and strategists on board. Plus, our coffee machine has been upgraded to withstand space pirates." As the sun set on the beleaguered planet, the refugees and their new human allies began to collaborate. The shuttle's cargo hold was soon buzzing with activity as supplies and equipment were unloaded. Plans were drawn up, and strategies were discussed with newfound fervor. The human crew mingled with the aliens, sharing stories and swapping recipes. One alien's delicacy was another's culinary disaster. Meanwhile, back in the remnants of the Borgus fleet, the surviving cyborgs were grappling with their own crisis. Their leaders' final orders had left them in disarray, and the shipyards were now abuzz with frantic repair work and reorganization. The cyborgs were determined to regroup and retaliate, but the unexpected defeat had left a mark. Rumors of the new human alliance spread, sparking both fear and curiosity. In the midst of the chaos, one of the cyborg engineers looked up from his workstation and muttered, "Did we just get outmaneuvered by a rusty old human destroyer? How humiliating." Back on the refugee planet, as night fell and the stars blinked in the dark sky, the new alliance stood as a beacon of hope. They were united not just by their past struggles, but by a shared vision of a future where they would stand together against any threat. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, there was a real sense of optimism. The refugee camp, once a makeshift assembly of haphazard shelters, was now a hive of organized activity. The human presence had brought with it not only advanced technology, but also a sense of purpose that was previously lacking. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting a golden hue on the wreckage of the defeated cyborg fleet, the newly formed coalition was already at work. In the heart of the camp, a command tent had been set up, adorned with holographic maps and buzzing with activity. Commander Riley, now clad in a utility jumpsuit that suggested he had just stepped off a construction site, was overseeing the operation. His usual swagger was replaced by a determined focus as he pored over data with Tira and Zog. "So, let's review," Riley said, pointing to a holographic projection of the planet's surface. "We've got three main tasks. First, we need to fortify our defenses. Second, we need to establish communication networks with other potential allies. And third, we need to figure out how to make this place less of a dump." Tira nodded. "We can handle the first two. Our engineers have been working on the defensive perimeters, and I've got a few contacts who might be interested in joining our cause. But the third one," she looked around at the rugged terrain and makeshift structures, "that's going to take a bit more elbow grease." Zog, who had been scowling at a pile of alien scrap, muttered, "Or we could just embrace the rustic charm. I'm sure the Borgus will find it quaint." Riley laughed. If only the Borgus had a sense of humor. Unfortunately, they don't. So, let's get cracking. As the team got to work, a small group of engineers began reinforcing the camp's perimeter with energy shields and automated turrets. The refugees, who had once been helpless, now worked alongside the humans, sharing their expertise and resources. The once disjointed effort had turned into a well-oiled machine. Elsewhere, the Coalition's communication team set up a network of transmitters and relays. They had established contact with a few sympathetic planets and were actively seeking more allies. News of the Coalition's victory and the new alliance spread like wildfire through the galaxy's grapevine. Back in the command tent, Riley's communicator beeped. He glanced at it and sighed. "Looks like we've got a new visitor. This ought to be interesting." The new visitor turned out to be a diplomat from the planet Arcturus. Ambassador Alara, a tall, elegant figure with skin that shifted color to match her emotions, arrived in a sleek shuttle. She was greeted with the kind of fanfare usually reserved for rock stars or visiting royalty. "Welcome, Ambassador Alara," Riley said with a theatrical bow. "We've heard great things about Arcturus. Hope you brought some of that fancy diplomacy with you." Alara smiled. "Thank you, Commander. I must admit, your victory over the Borgus has created quite a stir. Arcturus has been watching your progress with great interest." Tira stepped forward. "We're honored to have you here, Ambassador. We could use all the help we can get." Alara nodded. "I'm here to offer support and resources. Arcturus has been at odds with the Borgus for years, and we believe in the strength of this coalition. We can provide military aid, intelligence, and..." She paused and looked around at the camp. "A bit of luxury. Our diplomats are very good at making rough places look presentable." Riley's eyes lit up. "Luxury? Now we're talking. I've always wanted to see a space spa." Alara chuckled. "We might not have a spa on hand, but we can certainly improve the living conditions. Consider it a gesture of goodwill." As the day progressed, the camp began to transform. With Arcturus's support, the once crude shelters were upgraded with comfortable living quarters, and the refugee camp began to resemble something more like a thriving base of operations. The Coalition's morale improved as the facilities and amenities took shape. Meanwhile, the cyborgs were not idle. They had regrouped and were plotting their next move. In the aftermath of their defeat, the cyborg leadership was furious and determined to reclaim their lost honor. They began constructing new war machines and strategizing their revenge. One such meeting was held in the shadow of a massive repair bay, where the cyborg's new leader, General Xeron, addressed his troops. "The humans have tasted victory, but it will be their last. We will show them that they are nothing but insects to be crushed. Prepare for the final assault. Back at the coalition camp, the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. The new alliance was solidifying, and the preparations were advancing. Riley, Tira, and Zog stood together, surveying the improvements. "We're making progress," Tira said, her voice filled with determination. "But we can't afford to get complacent. The Borgus won't be down for long." "Agreed," Riley said, raising a cup of what was possibly the universe's best coffee. "But for now, let's enjoy the moment. We've earned it." Zog grumbled but took a sip of the coffee. All right. Here's to our new coalition. Let's just hope the Borgus don't have a surprise in store for us." As the coalition members gathered for a brief respite, the stars twinkled above, a reminder of the vast and unpredictable galaxy they inhabited. The alliance had taken its first steps, and the battle for survival continued. But with newfound allies and a strengthened resolve, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The once ragtag refugee camp now bustled with a renewed energy. The transformation, thanks to Ambassador Alara's support, had turned it into a well-organized base of operations. The camp's new facilities were state-of-the-art, from the advanced medical bays to the training simulators that had sprung up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. However, beneath the surface of this apparent tranquility, tension brewed. In the command tent, Riley, Tira, and Zog were huddled around a holographic table that displayed an ever-shifting map of the galaxy. The glow from the projection illuminated their faces as they discussed their next moves. "All right, team," Riley said, pointing to a cluster of planets on the map. "Our goal is to establish contact with these potential allies. The more we expand our network, the better our chances of holding off the Borgus." Tira adjusted her datapad. "I've got preliminary responses from 2 of these planets. They're interested but need assurances. The rest are still considering." Zog, who had been munching on a particularly questionable alien snack, muttered, "And what about the Borgus? Any word on their next move?" Just then, the command tent's door whooshed open, and Alara entered, looking unusually pensive. "Commander Riley, I've just received troubling news. Arcturus's intelligence report suggests that the Borgus are planning a significant offensive. They're mobilizing forces for what they're calling Operation Reclaim." Riley's expression darkened. "That doesn't sound promising. Do we have any details?" Alara nodded. "Not many, but it appears they're targeting strategic locations across the galaxy to weaken our coalition before launching a full-scale attack. They're planning to strike several key systems simultaneously." Tira's eyes widened. If they're successful, they could destabilize our alliance before it's fully formed. "Exactly," Alara said. "We need to act quickly to fortify our positions and get those allies on board. I've also requested additional support from Arcturus's fleet. They should be arriving shortly." As they discussed their strategy, a message came through from the outer perimeter of the camp. A young refugee named Nilo, who had been working on reconnaissance, reported an unusual sighting, a mysterious, shadowy figure lurking near the edge of their defenses. "I don't know what it was," Nilo said, visibly shaken. "But it moved too quickly for me to get a clear look." Riley frowned. "Could be a reconnaissance team or something worse." "Zog, can you take a few of the guards and check it out?" Zog grumbled but nodded. "Sure, just let me finish this snack. If it's an alien assassin, I want to be sure my last meal wasn't something that'll haunt me." As Zog and his team headed out to investigate, the atmosphere in the command tent grew tense. The coalition's success depended on their ability to anticipate and counter the Borgus' moves, but now they had a new, potentially sinister threat to consider. Meanwhile, at the Borgus repair bay, General Ziron and his top lieutenants were deep in their own planning session. The repair bay was a sprawling complex of clanking machinery and flashing lights. The air was thick with the smell of oil and the hum of robotic workers. "Prepare the new war machines," General Ziron ordered, his voice a metallic growl. "We need to show these upstart humans that they are no match for the Borgus. Operation Reclaim will be our vengeance and our triumph." One of Ziron's lieutenants, a particularly sleek and menacing cyborg named Inara, stepped forward. "We've also intercepted some communications from the humans. They're assembling an alliance. It seems they're making strides in rallying support. Xeron's eyes glowed red as he considered this. Then we need to accelerate our plans. We can't allow them to consolidate their power. Increase the pace of production. We'll strike before they're fully prepared. Back at the camp, Zog and his team had returned with disturbing news. They had found evidence of Borgus scouts, highly advanced surveillance drones disguised as rocks and debris. The revelation that the Borgus were actively monitoring their camp was a stark reminder of the looming threat. In the command tent, Riley paced back and forth, his fingers drumming on the table. So, the Borgus aren't just planning an attack. They're already spying on us. We need to tighten our security and fortify our defenses. Tira nodded. I'll increase the patrols and see if we can't get more intel on their movements. We need to stay ahead of them. Alara, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. There's something else you should know. Arcturus has a network of old allies, some of whom have been in hiding since the Borgus' rise. If we can reach out to them, we might gain critical support. Riley's eyes lit up. That's exactly what we need. Let's make those connections and bring everyone we can into this coalition. As the coalition members sprang into action, a sense of urgency filled the camp. The threat of the Borgus was now a palpable force, pushing them to work faster and more efficiently. Riley and his team knew they had to act quickly to secure their position and ensure the success of their alliance. Outside the command tent, the night sky was dotted with the shimmering lights of distant stars, a reminder of both the vastness of the galaxy and the enormity of their task. The coalition had taken its first steps, but the road ahead was fraught with danger. As the camp buzzed with activity and the stars blinked overhead, Riley, Tira, and Zog stood together, contemplating their next moves. The shadows of the past loomed large, but they were determined to confront them and secure a future where unity and strength could stand against the dark tide of the Borgus. And so, as the galaxy watched and the Borgus prepared their assault, the newly formed coalition prepared for the challenges ahead, ready to face whatever shadows the future might cast.